you had to at least wear a shirt and tie and sweater maybe, or a sports jacket. On occasions where you had presentations, it was a suit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I started in 1974 and I started wearing a tie to class. In those days, it was expected. And then it just became, I just had to, yeah.
No, that would be pretty simple.
Once you get it hardwired.
A number will be.
You know what? I'm more comfortable in a shirt and tie than I am not.
Good to know, okay. I do think.
Yeah, once it's hardwired, it's hard to change.
Yep.
Don't need to say no. I do think it would behoove us to work with our.
5 minutes left.
Things that take more discussion.
That works better.
Better.
We're in the middle of it, right?
This is okay, but we need to provide some direction and not.
You want me to just sit here quietly?
Okay. Anyway. A little earlier discussion would be good for us, I think.
You want me to take him?
See where the conversation goes if we get to the point where we need to,
Oh,
This is,
after we get through.
Let
number.
me step in.
This is 2 million.
You want me to do that?
I'll be like this,
For future use.
and then you can look at me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to not.
Angie,
Yeah, 'cause that,
Angie, on page 2 of the minutes, there's a figure 2287. That's 2 million. Or
Reserved for future use.
yeah, page 2, reserved for future use.
Oh, it is,
So that's 2 million.
comma between the two twos.
yes, it's $2,287, 711.
Yeah, that's true.
There's more to that conversation.
All right.
I feel like maybe we should.
We're missing Scott and Mayor Mays. Rod Runyon, you should be here.
Chairman McLaughlin, I'm here. This is Randall. I'm here, dialed in.
Oh, okay, good, Scott. Yeah, I was just talking to myself, but I'm glad you can hear me. Oh, Rod says he's on his way.
Yeah. Just a good cheers.
Oh, whew. I'll
Oh,
let it rip tonight, huh?
yeah. You're gonna be sorry. What's that? Very funny, Darcy.
Yeah. Could happen. Got my eye on you.
All right. Tennis. She's at a tennis match tonight with her. She's a coach. This is worrisome. My back to the fellows.
Everybody.
Coming back to check. There you go. We have 1 minute. I'm showing 5:30. So good evening and welcome back to our third day of budget review. Since tonight is a continuation of the review process, we will forego the pledge unless someone would rather we perform the pledge. Anyone? Good. Welcome, Counselor. No problem. All right. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to resume. Roll call, please.
Scott Randall.
Yeah. Scott Randall. He's,
Long. McLaughlin.
I'm here.
Bob Runyon. Dan Richardson.
Isn't-
Tanner Elliott.
He's on. You see him?
Was.
Okay.
Smith. Here. Joe Barcott.
Here.
Ben Ring.
Here.
Debbie Ferrer.
Here.
Oh, sorry. Also in attendance, the city's finance director, Angie Wilson, and interim city manager, Daniel Hunter.
All right. Roll call complete. We'll go ahead and look at approval of minutes from last night. I'll give you a second to go through them. We did have one correction on page 2 of the minutes. Reserved for future use was 2,287,711, 2 million. That was just a typo. No. All right, we're going to go ahead. Let's take a look. Do we have a motion to accept with amendment? Any other corrections on the minutes? Yes. Okay, good. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. We got that. And so we have a motion on the floor with a second. Any more debate, any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion, who was opposition?
They were saying aye.
Oh, got it. All right. All right, we'll move on then. We accept the minutes as read. Okay. We now have completed an in-depth review of individual departments. It is now time to discuss the request funding by various groups within our community. It is important that each stakeholder at this table have the opportunity to have input as to the outcome of the upcoming discussions. We will accomplish this task by remaining calm and focused with the primary goal of spending taxpayers' money efficiently and wisely. There is an additional request that I received from Mayor Mays last night that we had not had on the docket. And it's a request from St. Vincent's de Paul to pay for half of a security fence surrounding the Hope Warming Place building. The total amount of the fencing is $11,000, so 50%, $5,500. All right. I also was asked last evening to contact Debbie Jones. I talked to her this morning. Debbie is with her. Debbie is with her tennis team out of town tonight and will not be in attendance. She regrets not being here in person. When I talked to her, she was very surprised and enthused by the phone call. YouthInc is a youth-empowered program for the prevention and awareness of teen suicide, teen substance abuse, and other programs designated to improve the quality of life for our youth. Debbie is excited to hear about our attempt to possibly increase funding for youth-centered activities. One is Challenge Day, which I've had experience of when I was at White Salmon Valley Schools, Columbia High School. We did a Challenge Day, and it changed the culture of our school, and it was such an improvement. And we did it here in the Watonka campus, and it had an overall impact. I won't share a story, but it made an impact on people's lives, so kids' lives especially. And then she also is coordinating, is the coordination for building an issues facing youth today. So she has multiple programs she has in mind if you decide that it's justified to increase the amount that we award to YouthInc. With all of that said, now to the task at hand. What is the consensus of our team? How would we like to proceed? I think Izetta reminded me that we really need to begin by deciding what is happening with YouthInc and with the fireworks, and then we'll proceed on to the contractual services in the city council budget. Is that accurate? All right, how would we like to proceed with this next point on discussion? Any input? Yes, Debbie.
Regarding potentially more funds for YouthInc, Tim, as you know, I've been involved in a number of those activities too, although it's been a few years,
Yeah.
but I can't say enough about the work that Debbie Jones has done with YouthInc and Challenge Day and, you know, some of the other
Rachel's
programs.
Challenge and-
Rachel's Challenge. Yeah. Some just, you can't really describe the mood of the school after those programs. It's just such a huge impact, a positive impact. So I agree with Councillor Long's sentiment yesterday that we should, you know, fund the things that should be our highest priorities to the extent that we can.
Thank you.
Did Ms. Jones talk about amounts at all?
She did. I made suggestions that she's currently receiving for the program $10,000. With the other programs, and they are expensive, but it is amazing what can be done in one day in a school, or in this case, she's looking at possibly adding Challenge Day for adults, for parents, which that would have an impact on what happens at the home in a lot of homes in our community. So those usually, in my experience, has been about a $10,000 fundraising effort within the schools to bring the counselors and all the programs here. And then that gives her a 5,000. So she's looking at 15,000 in addition to the 10 for a total of 25. And if that's reasonable to everyone, that is what I'm throwing on the table to open our discussion. Yes.
I too participate in several of the challenge days and the committee meetings and whatnot. It's a very worthwhile enterprise. It does an extreme amount of good in the community, especially with the young people, but also with the adults that helped out in the program. We learned a lot. So
Amazing changes between
totally in support. If she has a
between-
place for it, that's a good funding procedure.
between parents and students and kids.
Yeah.
And students to student in their interactions. So yes, it is well worth the talking about this. And if we can possibly provide more assistance, that's on the table right now. Yes, of course.
So in a balanced budget, where does that increased funding come from? Councillor Long.
You're up. Yes.
So last year and the year before that, I don't remember, we've talked a lot about the fireworks program and how it's supposed to be spent. And last year we did not want to last minute cut off the funds and then make the program, but we did make it clear to Fort year. So I think it would be a very easy swap for us to switch the amounts between Youth Think and Fort Dalles displays.
Is there anyone from the fireworks in attendance tonight here and can speak to that?
Mr. Chairman, I couldn't hear Councilman Long.
Oh, it wasn't red. Ah,
There we go.
look
Thank
at
you very
that.
much.
Now you're on. Okay.
Okay.
Let's try that again, please.
Yes. So in years past, each year we've discussed the amount to Fort Dalles Fourth. And last year, especially, we didn't want to decrease the amount that was in the budget at the last minute because we were afraid that that would ruin the show, that they wouldn't have advance notice. And so they knew at that point that we were looking to reduce again the amount that was coming from City Council. And so I am proposing that we give Youth Think $25,000 and give Fort Dalles Fourth $10,000. And there was a comment after that, so I'm going to address that as well. As a city councilor, I did ask Fort Dalles Fourth to provide us information about how much money they fundraised and where that money was going. And what we got was not an auditable amount. So I don't know how much they raise. I don't know how much they spend on other things. I know our money goes straight to the fireworks, so that's great. But I don't want to, sorry, I'm going to back up, not say I don't want to. I don't think it's reasonable for us to just assume without proof, especially after this many years of giving them money, that they are raising money and spending it wherever we think it is and that it's a good thing. If they're raising money like they're supposed to, it should go toward the fireworks show. So
I think we have, rather than sent the money to them, the committee, we have sent that check directly to the
that's
fireworks.
what I said. Yes. Mhm. I'm just saying they've had advance notice that the city council was going to reduce the amount. It's been very clear for many, many years that it was seed money. City didn't want to have the expense with taxpayer dollars of doing the fireworks show. I know this is all history and it's, not everybody was here, but that is something that's been talked about a lot.
That's on the table. Let's have discussion. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think, thank you. I sympathize with the recent comment, and I don't disagree with it for sure. I feel it's very important for us to have accountability for the money that we provide to people out of the city budget. And it's concerning to me that if we can't have some sort of auditable trail, I'm a little bit concerned about that. But on the other hand, the conflicting side is that coming out of COVID, I think we all recognize that Cherry Festival is a good example this year of getting back to how things were pre-COVID. And I'm wondering, this is just for discussion. I'm wondering if we think about holding out for one more year to see if we can help them bolster that back to where it used to be pre-COVID. Just a topic for discussion.
Anyone else? Yes, Counselor.
Is one idea, possibility as we go through each of these and there's money being added, money being taken away, that we wait to the end to total and finalize? Or does it have to be done?
It doesn't have to be in
completely on
sequence.
each one as we come to it?
This is all open. This is new territory. Whatever moves this process along and fairly, and where everyone has input. That's the important thing. So what Rod is saying is that instead of taking this and making the decision, we go through everything, and then at the end we kind of come back and summarize, and then we can firm up all of these details. Everyone in agreement with that? All right.
I have a comment.
Yes. Yes.
So not knowing the history, I appreciate that, and knowing sort of the priorities of the city with the budget in history is good for me to know, because I don't know what the responsibility of the city has been for the project. And so I do appreciate what you're saying, and I understand the idea of it being seed money, and perhaps it has gone somewhere where they really don't need as much funding, but we wouldn't know if we weren't getting a report or they weren't being audited. And so it's kind of hard for me to make a decision in this context without having some sort of understanding of how much money they are in fact raising and whether that seed money is no longer needed. So to Mr. Ng's point, is it necessary? Do they need more? Do they need the $25,000? How would we know if maybe giving them 10,000 would be sufficient, because they do great fundraising now because they've had the seed money to build the organization. So thank you for that history.
RC.
Yeah, so I do want to just clarify, I'm not saying that I don't want us to have the fireworks show. That's fine. I enjoy the fireworks show. I know some people don't if they have PTSD and stuff, but I'm not opposed to us having that. I think it is a great event. It's brought people in. It adds a lot of community pride, especially being around the 4th of July. However, what I'm saying is only that I don't think tax dollars should be used to guarantee that we have that, because the history was we didn't want to do that. It was seed money. And I think that as leadership in the community, regardless of whether anyone here has a title or not, we could go out and help them fundraise from other community members and still have a wonderful show. I'm not trying to cut how much money is spent on fireworks. I'm just trying to motivate it to come from somewhere other than the city budget.
It seems to me that if they were told a year ago that this might happen, if it was going to cause any kind of a problem, they would have let us know.
Has anyone from the firework committee been in touch with anyone in the city? I don't have any knowledge of that.
No.
No?
My knowledge.
Okay. Initially, they were struggling to bring in a large event, and they brought it to the city council, and we looked at it, and we did face much criticism for using taxpayers' money for that, but we felt it was important that we support it and get it off the ground. And then it was the agreement that it would reduce over the years, like we're doing now and we're contemplating. So I think it's fair, and especially if we're not getting any feedback from the committee. An audit trail. We really need that to know that it's going to where it's supposed to go. All right. Do we have any other discussion? So it appears that we have consensus that we want to increase the funding going to Youth Inc. for use for the programs that I've outlined, the 2 programs plus, and reduce the amount of the firework from 25 down to 10. So it would just be a reversal.
So I'm just going to support what Councilor Runyon said, which is that he suggested that we wait until the end to see
Yes.
if there were other places, and I support that.
All right. So we have those 2. Let's open our books again back to page 8 of our budget books. And
Tim,
yes,
Well, do you think it'd be safe as we get through these
Ooh.
things to go ahead and take them off the whiteboard, since we've already touched on those? Is everybody okay with that? Or do we want to leave it on the whiteboard till the end?
let's talk about the whiteboard, because I like the term parking lot, and it's a place for us to put things so we don't forget and we go through the process. So right now, can we kind of go back just to refresh what's on? I can't see it from over here very well. So kind of give us a summary of what we're talking about on the whiteboard, and why from the right to the left, the green and the black.
So the first night of city council budget meeting was Monday night. So those items were written in green. So Nick wrote down that we wanted to go through the city council contractual services budget line by line, which we're doing currently right now.
Correct.
We also wanted to, regarding the contractual services and the legal, there's 55,000 there that can be removed and put elsewhere. In HR, we are looking at the wellness program, if the $26,000 is still going to be necessary. On the police department, we found some savings in the phone items just because a project was already updated that was put in the budget.
And that was Chief Worthy and I talked about that. Do you want to stop?
Yeah, so on the HR, the leadership training
Yeah.
was, the
Wellness.
wellness was not 26, wellness was 18.
Oh, okay, so it was the wellness then?
Yeah.
Okay. The police phones, we came up that we have savings of 14.5 in there. We're gonna also retouch on the drone policy this evening. The animal control, we were gonna revisit that at some point and look at a new animal control vehicle along with a full-time FTE that is currently 3/4 the time. And then we were also going to retouch on Tuesday night, we talked with all the writing in black on the other uses, the Dalles Main Street, the amount that's being given to them, the chamber, which is transient room tax dollars, the street fund, which is currently 450,000 transfer out into the street fund. We also wanted to relook at the loop project and you think and Fort Dalles. So right now we
covered 2.
covered 2. If you guys are good with it, after we've covered them, we can remove them from the board. So, or I can leave them on there.
No. I would put a check next to them because we haven't determined.
Yeah.
I'd
switching of
put
funding,
checks,
and I
but
don't want something to get.
I would
forgotten.
prefer to leave them up until we're at the end. Yes.
Sorry. And that was just out of the statements. Okay, sorry.
I believe there's discussion on the dog control officer also moving from.
Yes, yeah, I already mentioned that. Yeah.
Now, I didn't get all of the totals that you were, I should have written them down, but
We can go through that
Yes.
piece later
all right.
as we go down.
So where do we want to tackle first? Give me some direction here. Or I guess we'll
Can
start
we
at the
just
top.
finish the contractual services there?
That's what we're working on the
Okay.
top, and I guess we can go right. On the McKed Link Shelter, I don't know if there's any debate on the 20,000 for the link services.
We went through that last night.
One, okay, we're down to you think for fireworks display, non-designated for loo bathroom, 200,000. Beautification Committee annual projects, 10,000. The Dalles Art Center annual contract, 15,000. The Dalles Art Center public art installation, 25. And Beautification Committee, the tree plan for 20,000. And then we add the other additions from there, St. Vincent's, and you're representing St. Vincent's. All right. So this is new to us, and I got a call last night. So exactly, shall we go right into St. Vincent's request?
Go down your list.
Okay, then I'll go down my list. All right, we're starting at the top. Here we go. Loo bathroom.
That was decided last night.
I think so. I think we did.
All right. I love it. Let's check that one off. Beautification Committee annual projects. $10,000.
I need some clarification on the beautification. I'm wondering how many separate requests there are. There's the tree plan for 20,000 and the furniture request for 28,000. But then page 8 talks about annual projects for 10,000 and BIPs 3 and 5 talk about beautification / art for 25,000. So are there 4 separate requests or how does all that shake out?
Yes, please, Izetta.
When Mayor Mays came on board, was elected, he felt strongly that there needed to be beautification and art. And he put it kind of together in the initial plan. However, it's 2 separate things. There is a contract with the Dalles Art Center for art. And so that's a $15,000 contract. So they get that to work on art projects. Altogether the Dalles was correct. Okay. was the first thing that they completed, had completed. They're working on other things now. And then the beautification committee was to work on things that make the city more inviting, to increase a sense of pride, to clean up areas. And they are an ad hoc committee. So they are tasked with, they have the $10,000 to do research on projects and think, to get things and do some little things. But they are to come back to council with projects, and the council has to make a decision. Do they want to pay for those things or not? An example of a large project is welcome signs, and they came and did a presentation to council on that last year. And the welcome signs is in the budget for this year, the $50,000 for the welcome signs. So that was a project they did a ton of work on, and then now they've handed it off to the city to accomplish. I believe transportation division is handling that. So what you have now in front of you is the $15,000 for the art contract, the $10,000 seed money for the beautification committee, and then they have two projects that they're recommending, and one got put in here. I'm not sure exactly, but that the beautification committee tree plan is what you had before you the first night, and there was a handout that explained about trees and I know that there are committee members here if you wanted them to explain more about that specific thing. The fifth was what I did for the committee, saying they requested the 20 and the 28. The 20 was in the budget, but the 28 was not. And so I added it to the fifth just so everyone was aware that there was another project. If it doesn't get funded this year, it will come back because they feel strongly about it. Or I think it will. And so that's why you see it broken out that way.
So is the 10,000 for beautification that's shown in the BIP, is that the same 10,000 that's shown on page 8 for annual projects?
That's their annual
right
research and development money.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Of
about
course
that
you may.
too? So
Yes.
just as an example, this year, much of that $10,000 was spent on some wind sculpture art that you're about to see because some of it, I believe, has been delivered now. Is that right? And so we're working with the city to have that installed. There'll be 3 wind sculptures down at the dock area, and then 2 larger ones in some areas that we're still working on permissions for. So that's an example of what that $10,000 is used for. And then a number of other projects like the recognition of homeowners who, the beautification award and things like that. So they get some awards and some recognition. And so that's kind of the annual projects, smaller projects. And then Izetta did a really nice job of explaining that beyond those smaller projects, the beautification committee comes to the city council and recommends more spending on bigger projects.
Thank you.
Any other discussions on this topic?
Sorry, what's
Beautification is the topic, and we were just looking for clarification on the amounts and what they're used for. Yes, Barcelona.
Yeah, so I was wondering, since the tree plan is a specific request, but it actually is under economic development and a separate agency, the Gateway Urban Renewal Agency, which I'm the chair of. We are working on a tree plan and some other things that the beautification committee is working on. And since they need approval from city council before they do anything, I think that they could leverage their funds by bringing us their expertise and their opinions on those topics, just like they report to city council. And so I would propose that we not specify that it's for tree plants, because potentially the trees may be taken care of out of another budget, and then the beautification committee would still have $20,000 to present projects to beautify the city. Yes, I said.
Actual ordinance that says these are the trees of the city. These are the kinds of suggested trees. After all the research is done, the 20,000 is to get a professional to actually give that feedback so that we can present a whole plan.
I understand. And I'm not saying that that won't be how the $20,000 is spent. I was just asking if we could remove the specification in case it's a duplication in some fashion and they would like to use it in a different way. Since everything has to be approved by the city council anyway.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm looking at a total of 58,000 requests from Beautification Committee. Is that correct?
Money is in the budget, and then there's an additional 28 that they would love to get.
So 30 is in the budget right now,
Yes, that's
10
correct.
plus a 20.
Yep, that's correct.
There's an additional
So
request.
we would have to find those funds.
Yeah.
Right? Yep. And what you're saying, Darcy, is that the potential of finding funds is within another agency, which is urban renewal.
Yeah, I think I was basically just trying to make sure that we didn't have restrictions. And if Angie says, that having it in there with, tree plan in parentheses doesn't really tie their hands, then that's fine. I was just trying to put on the record that there's also opportunities and to bring them more into what the city is doing and you have it in alignment because they're doing great work. But I just,
Yes.
But to Darcy's point, not having it specified with that, I believe the U.S. Forest Service has urban tree professionals that we can get input from for no cost. And so the need to hire someone to tell us that may not be necessary. So having that money directly tied to that may be unnecessary.
Yes, of course.
So if it says that in parentheses on that line item, that means that money is dedicated for that project. Whereas if we remove that, it can be used for that project, but it could also be used for a different project. The question I have is, if it's in there in parentheses, tree plan, is it dedicated to tree plan?
So currently, that's how I would interpret that to be. I know that one thing that council has spoke of that I've heard many members say is to be able to not just be writing checks out, but to know that the projects are being done. And so if it was me, I would be removing the tree plan and doing the beautification committee in itself. I did see Izetta's head nod on a couple of questions. I know that you're on the beautification committee, so you may want to maybe speak for them in if that can be done without hiring a contractor.
Can I ask Bill to speak, Bill Lennox, to kind of give a quick summary of what the plan involves?
Mr. Lennox, would you approach the mic so we can hear? Make sure it's turned on, please. It's on the top side. Now we have you.
Hello,
Yes.
my name is Bill Lennox. I live at 1005 Federal Street in the Dalles, and I'm on the Beautification Committee. And I guess I wrote the initial idea about a tree plan for the Dalles. And part of my concerns were we started looking at initially, I'll try to make this short, we were looking at the downtown 2nd Street, 3rd Street areas, recognizing that the condition of so many of our trees are in bad shape. We were looking at hiring an arborist to give us some sort of sense of the kind of trees that we could plant there that would really be a lot stronger and healthier, and that they would be more suitable. And once we started really looking into it, we realized that this is a much bigger project, because it's not a matter of just choosing trees and then putting them in the ground, because the ground has to be prepared for it. And there has to be a lot of things that has to go involved, which would involve public works for all practical purposes, because we'd be tearing up sidewalks potentially to get these trees planted in an appropriate place. So once that started to happen, we started to look at how that this project really needs to be something that the city not only looks at from just a beautification perspective, but also from all the different agencies that have an interest. And I outlined that in my initial talk, because I know that Public Works, the Parks and Rec, and the Dalles Chamber, and Urban Renewal, and I could go on and on and on about all these agencies that are really trying to do really good work. But oftentimes we're at odds because we're not talking to each other, and or there's no consensus. So the whole idea was to bring this to City Council, to get the idea that our trees in this community, our beautiful, wonderful sycamores, are going to die out. And we don't have a plan in the city to really work on establishing a tree canopy. And like many communities in Oregon and throughout the country, they have a program within the city that works on identifying trees that are suitable, helps people, homeowners, plan and decide what kinds of trees they want to plant, and sort of developing some kind of a program that works with all of our agencies, all of our interests, to work together to try to formulate a plan, as opposed to having independent agencies. For instance, Urban Renewal, they've been working on a project on First Street, and that's really a great thing, and it's very appreciative, but it needs to somehow be incorporated into other agencies and other folks, so we can all work together and feel like we're going to do the best we can for the community. So that's what the tree program is really about. It's trying to develop. Oftentimes, some communities have volunteer programs that they work on identifying how they can develop a better program for the city overall. I'm just saying, I'm putting basically a bug in the City Council's ear through the Beautification Committee. It is time for all the agencies, including
Time's up.
Get the hook.
Okay. Thanks for the. So can I?
There you go. You're back.
I know. Thank you. So what I'd like to do is, if you've got some questions about this whole idea, and I'm going to go back and just hit this 1 minute. It seems kind of silly, doesn't it? We really appreciate the big trees, the sycamores in our community, but they're not going to last forever, and they're going to be gone. So we have to have something in place for this community.
Got your point.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, of course.
I have a question. So these funds under contractual services, specifically for the Beautification Committee, just enlighten me. Maybe this is a staff question. We're not actually proposing to write a check to the Beautification Committee and say, go forth and do good, make sure it's about trees for 20,000, correct? And correct me if I'm wrong, my sense of this was it was more of a almost a staff or city manager work plan, that it was the committee's doing work under some direction from council, under immediate sort of supervision from the city manager who oversees staff liaison. And essentially the round number puts wind in the sails.
That's correct, Counselor. Essentially what would happen is the Education Committee would get the information on who can provide, if they're going to an outside source, who can provide the information on trees that would be usable and survive as street trees, and that would provide the canopy that we're looking for. then they would bring that to city council or the city manager, and city manager would bring it to council and describe what trees have, or what the process was and what has been discovered, and then provide the funding for either contracting with that person or getting.
So presumably the city manager could also play traffic cop essentially with staff and saying, you committee need to interact with urban renewal in this fashion and essentially make sure that there's not duplication. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
So I think that Serena Smith best summed it up, and I think I gummed it up to start with. I think we're debating something that wasn't what I was putting on the table. I am not saying I don't like the trees. I like the trees. I thought I said that aloud. Maybe it was in my head. I'm just saying, could we give the committee more flexibility by removing the tree plan line? And then I gummed it up by saying potential reasons why I thought it was a good idea.
So back to my question is just a very simple procedural type of question, which is to say, if it says in parentheses, tree plan, does that mean that you would only disperse funds toward a tree plan? So if there were, say, if they spent $15,000 on the tree plan, you would say, oh, that's it. You can't have the other $5,000 because it's not going toward the tree plan. Whereas if you took tree plan, the words out of that line item, we understand that they will work on a tree plan. But then if they only spent $15,000 on the tree plan, they would have the flexibility then to spend the $500. So I'm just saying, in terms of strictly the logistics of reading this, if it says tree plan in parentheses right there, are they only allowed to spend those funds on a tree plan? So we might want to remove those words and give them the flexibility to spend unspent money on something else. I don't know. I'm assuming it depends on how you interpret, or how whoever it is interprets the actual words that are right there on the piece of paper.
Let me see if I can explain it to provide maybe some clarity. Don't hold me to that. So if they go out and they get the tree plan completed for 15,000, if 20,000 is budgeted for that, they've got 5,000 remaining. That 5,000 is in that fund, and fund meaning not just on that line, but anywhere in that fund that's been budgeted. As long as that fund doesn't go over on everything else more than that 5,000 they've saved, then they're fine.
They can do what they want.
Right. Right.
I think possibly, Darcy, it really doesn't matter if it says tree plan or not.
I wanted to say tree plan.
You want it to say tree.
Damn right. Yeah.
Can I just add one quick comment that the Beautification Committee, if anything, has been very careful about spending their money. In fact, they really work hard to be careful and very prudent. So I think that you can safely put money in the budget, and we'd be more apt to be very careful about going to the right people to make sure it's approved.
Now, many years ago, we did come up with a plan for planting the downtown corridor, and many of those trees are still there today, but many have died. And we discovered that the grate that we put around there was overheating the roots, killing the tree. You know, things like that make us question. We have to have the plan. Now, are those all of the trees going to be removed and replanted? Or are there some that are currently in different areas of our city that are still
Mr.
viable?
Chair.
Getting into the weeds.
Yeah,
Yes.
I talked enough. Go ahead.
We're getting into the weeds on the plan that has yet to be formulated. Mr. Chairman.
I just want to bring it up though, because we don't want to go down the path and repeat what we've done in the past.
I
think what
It's a
we're-
city council discussion.
I think what
I'm
we're,
sorry, but I would like to move on to the next
All right.
item.
I'm
I love you.
okay with
I
that.
like to do that.
We're going to move on.
okay.
All
Thank
right,
you
we
very
have-
much.
We have a discussion. We're going to move on.
May I ask a question?
Of course you may.
I agree with Ms. Smith over there that let's a one-time increase in the 10 and giving them 20 without designation based on what we're hearing about the possibilities of urban renewal. And that I think Councilor Long has a point there. So let's not designate that money and let them talk with urban renewal and see where that goes, because really it sounds like that's a pretty good place for it to go. And if it does work out that way, then there's funds available to the beautification committee for other things. Okay. I'm not in favor of doing the furniture addition at this point. I'd like to get our city manager on board before we go there. And he has discretion with city funds to do different projects, and let him make some decisions on that. And that's where I'm headed.
I hear that. Okay. Have we covered this particular contractual service, all of the items in this particular category? All right, hearing.
So can I clarify one thing on the loo? Because we said we were done with that
Well,
last,
no,
that we're leaving that as just a placeholder. Okay,
at the agreement.
because I think a lot of it's about the location, and that'll come out later.
All right.
All right, thank you.
So we have completed the contractual. We still have items remaining on the parking lot. Do you want to just start at the top and work down those?
Okay, so you've completed the Dalles Art Center annual contract and the public art installation.
Well,
And you guys are good with all of those items?
anyone? The Dalles Art Center annual contract, the Dalles Art Center public art installation. We're okay with that? Any?
Where does the installation occur at, in town or?
Ooh,
Talking about?
I don't know. Anyone from the art committee?
Plus,
Plus,
Okay. Mhm. Gotcha. Okay.
All right,
I believe like the next thing that would still be in that contractual services
right.
would be the St. Vincent fence.
Okay, let's take that topic up and look at that. Would you like to come give us a little description on background and why the request?
Kathleen Priest. I am the chair of St. Vincent de Paul. And our ministry building, which a lot of you know is Community Meals, the Warming Place, Bread and Blessings. But it's our St. Vincent de Paul ministry building. It's on 3rd Street, 3rd and Pentland. And we have had, over the course of months, an increase of urban camping on our property, which is private property. We've been trying to get them off our property, but it's been difficult. And with that also comes drug usage and drug dealings, like the drive-by, because they can go through around the corner of our parking lot. And it has been on our board with outside consultant having an agreement that the best way to secure our property and secure safety for our clients, our staff, and our neighborhood is to create a fence or have a fence that will prevent people from freely going through our property. And we have an estimate from Kiwi, and we do have secured half of that funding for the fence. And we do think that that will help mitigate the drug usage, the drug dealings, and the violence that is increasing every day. And especially when we are not open, which is nights and weekends. This is what, so we're asking, because it's not a St. Vincent de Paul issue, it's an all of our alls issue. So we're just asking for help for the city
Support.
to give us half of the money.
And the amount was $11,000?
That's $11,951.20. So half of that would be $5,975.60.
Open for discussion. Any questions? Yes.
I don't have a question, but I was going to say, I believe that as a, not as the issue of the fence, but as a procedural thing, I feel like this is out of order because We have a budget process where people have to go to the city manager and get things in the budget, and allowing people to just walk in and ask for money on the spot and not opening that up to the rest of the public is not fair. And it's also not a good way to run the budget committee meeting. I would also like to point out that these types of requests typically come, as it originally did, to city council. And we have a number of funds that once we discuss our policy discussion on this, then city council has access to a small amount of money like that we could use.
Right. I was asked last night by the mayor, called me and requested that we look at this. That's why it's on. So I think procedurally, that would be the proper way to go, is go back through the city manager and then request the funds through that procedure. And then we can go from there.
Like at a standard city council meeting, or
I couldn't hear you.
I was just trying to clarify for my own understanding, that process being approach the city manager, asked to be put on the agenda for a city council meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when do we have the new city manager staff and?
May 16th. And Matthew Klebs is our new city manager. So that would be the right way to go through. And I think what we'll do is table this for tonight, move it off from our agenda.
Right, well,
Thank you very much for coming and enlightening us.
Starts at 8 a.m. that day, by the way.
Take that one off let's move down. Next item. What do we want to cover next?
Do you want to just go from the top on the,
Good way to start, right from the top.
so the next one under the loo would be the chamber?
Okay. Anyone? Go ahead, Izetta. Okay. Well, we're just going.
City council is legal.
Oh, on the left.
On the right. Okay, gotcha. Never mind. Okay, thank you.
Okay, give me a recommendation.
The other uses would be Main Street. That we're talking about.
Yeah, these were just kind of highlights of what we ended on yesterday.
I think that's the list we're creating, right?
Yep.
And so we want to start with the green, stuff in green.
Stuff in green was the funds that were okay to take out. I believe the writing in black is
Stuff we need to make decisions on.
So if I can interrupt, on the other uses, these are some items that are still coming in for ask. For example, we have a budget that we received from the chamber that you guys wanted to talk more in depth about. Main Street has come to us. You wanted to talk more in depth about that. You also asked us to, I think we've talked about the beautification committee, so we
did.
could probably put a check by that.
We're
And
moving on from beautification.
yes, so now we're basically in the other uses section of our budget. And if you would like to turn to page 73 of your budget, that will put us in that area a little bit more.
Okay.
Just a reminder, Main Street is in two different areas of your budget. It's in the other uses of your budget, which is in the first line item. And then it's also under the economic development section of your budget, which is on page 46.
So what are the amounts on those two accounts?
So on page 73, we
Yes.
have Main Street Tourism for $40,000. And on page 46, we have the Main Street Program for $25,000.
Okay. And that's the total ask right now, except for the additional amounts that's being requested.
This is what is in the budget currently. And I believe that Main Street has come
to the committee and during the first evening and have asked for more.
Okay, that's Main Street, not Chamber.
Yes.
Straight.
Got it. All right. So we're discussing Main Street at this,
Yes.
Right. just point of clarification. And what is the ask that, in addition to the $65,000?
I believe their ask for economic development was an additional 75,000, and then they had 65 for their 100,000 total. There's already 25 total budgeted.
I believe that they're asking for an additional 25,000 for their total budget of their asking needs are 205,000, which is an additional $140,000 of what they've already asked, what is already budgeted. 65,000 is for investment portfolio.
And exactly where is this money coming from? Angie, where is this money coming from?
Well, currently we have in the Main Street tourism, $40,000. That would be transient room tax dollars. If you, I believe last night I mentioned on Monday night, I handed out an updated BIP 22-005. And on page 2 of that BIP shows the proposed budget for transient room tax dollars for tourism. And that's where those proposed dollars are coming from. So I think that if you were going to be giving additional money to Main Street, it would be coming from the tourism dollars.
Tourism dollars, and that comes from transient room tax. What's that total amount? I know it's on your.
It's $971,071 is what we're currently budgeting to receive.
Huh?
Before the budget process started, and city manager put the budget together, we put together an ask and approved $707,852 with $263,000 rolling into general fund activities for other items.
Understand. So predominantly that money is going to the chamber, and then a portion of that is going back to Main Street, 65,000 currently.
That's correct. About 47.6 is budgeted to go to the chamber. And that is also on that BIP, the chamber's budget.
All right. You're up. I can tell you have a question.
I just wonder if it'd be worth taking a casual poll of the budget committee to see if there's anyone wanting discussion on the item or willing to advocate that we add that to the budget.
Is there anyone on the budget committee willing to advocate for this money? I don't hear anything.
So
Yes.
So I did a lot of thinking about this. I was interested in this because I don't have experience with this. I'm not familiar with Main Street and all the variety of things in terms of economic development. However, I think I've identified that urban renewal does large scale infrastructure kinds of projects, and Chamber of Commerce does tourism, local events kinds of projects. And Main Street fills sort of a gap in terms of small business infrastructure, HVAC for a business or something, getting grants in for businesses in a place where I think, as far as I could tell anyway, the city government doesn't provide that service. I know we have an economic development tab here and not a lot happening in there. And so I kind of tried to identify where Main Street fits in that scheme. There is a place for what it appears that they are doing for our community, and they are doing for our community something that we need. And so to that extent, I support Main Street and I support that as an organization. And then I tried to get to supporting this proposal, and I couldn't quite get there, personally speaking, just in terms of the jump, in terms of what the expectation was, what the $25,000 was bringing back. And I appreciate very much the ROI dollar amount. I appreciate that. But I thought, well, if we go from 25,000 to 100,000, are we going to end up going from 600,000 to 2.4 million in grants coming in? Like, is there an ROI multiplied? And so I think I would need to know a little bit more about the opportunities that will increase the ROI in order for me to appreciate that comparison, right? Do you see what I'm saying? And so what I would advocate for is a smaller growth, as opposed to a jump to huge, I know I'm looking at you guys, but organizational development. I would sort of like to see that develop, as opposed to go from 0 to 150 without really knowing what you're going to get. And also, is there a plan for self-sustaining? Is this seed money? Is there an anticipation that, I don't know if I got to that point, but is there an anticipation that, like with the fireworks, that this would lead to a point where you would pay that, you wouldn't need the city involved anymore?
Councillor Long, your response, your question?
Not a response. So what I was going to point out is that I didn't propose to put it in the budget because I don't know right now where that money would come from. And also City Council has not had a chance yet to review the proposal. We really received it individually over, and so it needs to be discussed by us. I'm not saying that I oppose or approve of any of this, but I think the procedure, sort of like what I said to St. Vincent de Paul, is to come ahead of time. And I know that the tourism contract with the city is something that was put together with the city manager. It takes a great deal of time and energy, and we still go over it as a group. But that is something that the city manager goes over line by line to make sure it's exactly what we want to contract services for. And we haven't had a chance to do that with Main Street's proposal. And I believe that there is potentially money in the budget later if we decide that this is something we want to do, but I don't think the budget committee is the place to do it. And with the budget that I'm seeing, I don't see where we would come up with that money without hurting something else for something that City Council may not approve of in the future, may or may not.
I agree with that logic. Anyone else?
Agreed.
You, everyone else? Yeah, I'm seeing nods. Yes.
I would
Okay.
say additionally, since we're having pre-discussion, that we have a new city manager coming in,
I know.
and I know, I'm speaking to all of us. And rather than contracting for new staff kind of at the last minute without real clear sense of what and why and what the scope of work is, and et cetera, in a tight budget, we ought to give our city manager the chance to develop some thoughts. I know he has some about economic development, proper contracting and personnel staffing for the city, and bring that to City Council.
Everyone seems to be in agreement. Consensus is that we move that item to City Council and the request be made in the correct procedure. Anyone disagree? Okay, let's remove that one, or let's check it. Good. All right, next item.
Okay, so in the other uses, the next line item down below is for the Chamber of Commerce for the tourism.
Yep.
And that is also on the BIP that I provided on Monday night to you, the 22-005. Page 2 is where we budgeted for those tourism dollars. And if you turn to page 3, there is their budget. And they've also provided a packet to us, I believe, on Monday evening.
Angie, for clarification, the packet they provided Monday evening, that was the same as what they presented to city council, the actual budget,
Yes.
correct? Yes. Okay. Which, did we take a vote on that
I-
and approve it?
no.
I thought we did.
No, we didn't.
No, just
think
talked
so.
about it. Okay. Thank you.
Lisa, did we approve that? No. Okay,
Presentation.
got it.
Mr. Just really quick, I lost my audio there. Are we done with the Main Street discussion?
Yes, we're moving on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Wake me up. Yes. Now we're on to Chamber of Commerce request is where we're the point of discussion.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councillor Runyon.
Just to start things moving, they're all wonderful and valid items listed on that list by the chamber. However, there's a huge, huge jump from what we were putting out to this new number. And my real concern is, what are they going to ask for next year? And are we going to continue with an accelerating scale? I just don't know enough about it at this point to okay this entire amount. And so that's kind of where I stand. So I'm willing to hear what everybody else has to say.
Councillor Richardson.
It's maybe out of order. You'll correct me, no doubt.
Count on it.
There's a few things I'd like to add that are on the board. And I think, or I wonder if we look at that number, if we could circle back around to some of the other ones, including the chamber, because we might find places there. I'm looking at wellness and phones and some other things, possibly including the chamber, where we could squeeze a little bit and pay for some other items.
So your next recommendation to cover is? Give
In
me
my
your-
mind, the animal control items are related. And there's three, if I understand right. One's bumping the staff up to full-time. One's getting an air conditioned, or I should say climate controlled cab and for a vehicle to store animals properly. And one is a new vehicle. And if my numbers are right, you add those together, it's about $94,000 to add to the budget. And if we look at some of these other things, I think we could get there pretty readily.
So you said three things.
Staff to full-time
Yes, animal control vehicle.
vehicle.
And
And then I believe the addition, Chief could correct me if I'm wrong, the climate controlled cab is a sort of separate item that needs to go on the vehicle. All right. So three items.
I would just say that the the budget committee's task as far as the cost for increasing staff is to approve the budgeted or to approve the amount. It's city manager's prerogative to increase that position to full-time from 3/4 time. And that would be contingent on city council approving the compensation at full-time.
Thank you. So we could talk about compensation that would be needed to make that happen, but not actually give orders to make that happen.
Correct. Well, the funding to make it happen.
Thank you.
so that one's off. How about the animal control? Those two kind of go together. Captain Carrico, could you provide us any additional information on that topic? All right.
Jamie, I have it. Would you like it?
And could you come up to the mic?
Sure.
We have questions about this.
Sure.
Yep.
It sounded like you were saying the money for making the animal control full-time was off.
That's discretionary to the.
So this committee would need to approve the funds in order for the city manager to make the position full-time and for city council to approve the compensation. The funding part of it comes from this committee. Once the funding is approved, then the other pieces can go
Or not.
or not.
So let's circle back around and take a look at that. Right, funding for the staff increase from 3/4 to full-time. What is that amount again?
And Angie would have to answer that part.
28,000.
That's
28?
what I had, is 28,000.
We had a total, but okay.
That's the increase.
That's the increase over what they're paying,
Yep.
what they're receiving now for 3/4 time. All right.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. So I've done some work on the police department's budget,
Right.
working with them today, trying to figure out a sound way of getting through to be able to get some of the needs that they're really hoping to get. And one of the needs that they were hoping to get is to increase the salary for the dog control position, which would be an additional 28,000. Jamie will talk about the BIP for the dog control, but his BIP is actually for 93,500. So I'll let you discuss that further because you might have been able to work on changing that number today. I'm not sure.
Sure. So the number that Andrew just mentioned, it's more of an accurate number, 93,000. The climate controlled bed for that truck is 42,000. These are rough numbers. This is, nobody can really give you project actual numbers, but it's about $42,000. That's a company that's drivable to somewhere in Washington, Bellingham. We wouldn't have to ship the truck and get it outfitted. And then the other expenses in that 93, radio, emergency lights, truck itself.
Truck, fancy cab or climate control cab, funding for the staff position and miscellany, 93,000,
93,000 is just the vehicle.
just the vehicle. Yikes. Thank you. Let's get the numbers right here. 93, sorry, I was playing with numbers. So 93 for the vehicle, 28 for the staff.
Yes.
All right.
We can, there are some other things that we can pull. We want to talk about that now. We have in the budget now $15,000 for painting the upstairs of the police department. And forego.
Would you like me to mention those?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
I'm sorry. Okay, so looking at the budget today, not only in the police department, I was looking at all aspects of the general fund budget of what's changed since February that we could, possibly reduce or cut. And again, needs and wants. And so for the police department, I spoke with Captain Carrico and Chief Worthy, and we feel like there's some cuts that would be actually possible. One would be the phone system. Since the phone system was already able to be produced in this year's budget, we're able to reduce that 14,500. In the police department, in the CERT area of the budget is the MRAP paint and maintenance. We could reduce that. That's not an absolute necessary item. That's 4,000. Painting the upstairs of 15,000, that could actually be held off also. Updating the signs for the building, that would be 8,000. There's there's the drone on there. They would like to keep the drone. That's important to them, but that's another item that's actually on our list, the whiteboard, to talk about this evening. But without the drone, that's cutting the budget 41,500 out of the police department that could be moved and used for contributions to the dog control for the vehicle. Also, they on their capital expenditures, they have 3 vehicles budgeted for this year. Just a reminder how that it works on the vehicles is we have a capital improvement plan that's on the BIP in the back of your book. And we budget those out so we don't have to end up one year needing 10 police vehicles that have a ton of miles on them. But due to staffing issues this year, they do feel like the cars are that vehicle might be in a little bit better condition, that they could actually hold off on that vehicle and they could use that 44,000, if I'm understanding this correctly. And that 44,000 along with the 41.5 would give 85.5.
Just to clarify the vehicles a little bit, marked patrol cars have a lot more, they get a lot more wear and tear on them. Can't really bend on that as far as our ask, but we have an unmarked patrol vehicle that is used for training, also detectives, that I think we could probably limp along, for lack of a better word, another year. Our dog truck right now, our animal truck is end of life, almost to the point where it's not.
Also, all of these are examples of us deferring maintenance and deferring other projects that we do need to do at the police department, including the unmarked car, including the paint, including the outside signs are completely sun blasted, wind blasted in this environment. But we're willing to make those sacrifices to move forward in this budget, answer this critical need, dog control truck, right? So the last thing we want to do is dog or officer in a unsafe or poorly maintained vehicle. So these are examples of things that we are willing to move around within the police department budget. But also, I would consider the police department sort of a core service of the city. And if the budget committee was willing or saw the wisdom in it to look outside of the police department budget to answer some of these questions, that of course would be most efficient. We think that we brought a lean budget, brought an effective budget, only brought forth things that we really need and want. So, even like painting upstairs, every single thing there is necessary. So I would ask also that if he chooses outside the police department budget to make these sacrifices. And point of clarification too, added is 22,800 for salary and wages for the dog animal officer, not 1,000.
The salary range of what the dog control officer is actually starting at, it would be closer to the 28 range.
Yes, please.
Would you bear with me with just a little arithmetic?
Yes, of course.
Thank you, sir. So 121 is the number for animal control truck staff. If we take out the phones in the MRAP, that's 18,000. So we're down to 103. If we take out the wellness, which is already an easy remove, it sounds like that puts us down to 85 that we need to find. I propose there's a couple of places we could squeeze a little bit without harming ourselves terribly and maybe get real close to that 85. One is to revisit the loo. 200 is a placeholder. We don't need to spend that whole 200 to get a loo. We don't know that we need it. We could easily take out 30 or 40 from that and still have a loo and a goodly amount of funds to explore the siting and the installation. That would get us down to maybe 40. And with respect, I think if we took 30 or 40 out of the chamber budget, it would still be a healthy budget. It would still be a healthy increase, maybe not a 30% increase, but maybe more like a 25 or 24% increase. And that funds our animal control needs, keeps everybody more or less whole.
Any other input? Yes, Debbie.
I wasn't quite following all your math. So if we were to go with what you just outlined, would that allow some of the items that the police department just indicated that they would be willing to forego to remain, for instance, the car?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
The painting in the car, the painting, the signage in the cars. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to cut to the bone.
I thought I was following that correctly, but I just wanted to clarify. So
I'd be happy to write on the whiteboard if it would be helpful.
100%.
I don't know if I can release you to do that. That's frightening.
There's a
Are
back,
you grabbing a-
there's a backside to that whiteboard.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, yes, Darcy.
I think maybe Angie is getting ready to discuss this, but we can't use TRT dollars in the way that was just proposed. I
Oh,
do not believe. 'Cause
You-
that's
Well, we're not supposed to. I mean, the tourism dollars are for tourism. That's what the transient room tax dollars was set up for, is to give back to programs to create tourism. So, for example, if, let's say, we're budgeted 971 this year. Let's say we only get 500,000, then those tourism dollars drop, which means the Chamber of Commerce tourism drops, the Fort Dalles display money drops. So it would be hard to drop a personnel service from tourism dollars if the money drops. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but the tourism dollars are usually set to go back into tourism.
Do you have a suggestion on where else the group can?
Actually, I was just getting into the weeds.
I know how good you are
So,
at this, so that's why I'm asking.
My personal opinion is I feel that the tourism dollars need to stay in the tourism and that we shouldn't be grabbing from those funds. I feel like I have a whole page of ideas of money that we could cut, but I also feel like this is coming from each department, and these are maybe needs from other departments too. So if we cut all the needs from each department, everybody should be giving a little to be able to provide what we need, if that makes sense. I guess there's difference, needs and wants, and what we can do to make it a balanced budget. And I have several line items of what I feel like we could possibly cut this evening. And when you guys are ready, I can go through that. I just didn't know we were there yet.
we're not quite there yet, but we will get to that point.
I would also add that each of you has this CIS insurance sheet
Yeah, we saw.
in front of you. And sorry, Ben and Scott, but what we're looking at is insurance premiums for our general liability and property and in auto insurance through CIS. And I don't want to go into it unless the board's ready to, but there's some significant increases there, particularly for general fund and transportation division.
Of course you may.
I would like to put on the record that I would like us to do as much as we can to have the dog catcher vehicle and with as little pain to the police department as possible. So if that rises to anywhere.
Agreed.
Where has that 55,000 from legal been? No, that's on my page. Okay. To discuss later. I guess You have another, I guess what I thought is we were going through the needs and wants. We were going to go after that, figure out what can be cut out and see where we were at for everything versus just the police department. I was thinking that we could go through all the way down and then look at everything as a whole and see how we come out in the end.
That makes sense.
Let's proceed. Dan, you want to,
I was gonna support Dan and say, Dan, I think what you did was demonstrate that it is possible for us to do that, and we will prioritize doing that. So thank you very much for that work you did.
there you go.
89. Phone, we take out phones, camera, wellness.
89. Everybody has that?
89, all right.
All right. Since legal was brought up, is that the next topic?
I think maybe a good thing to talk about is you guys had us yesterday put on the whiteboard the street fund.
We were transferring 450,000 this year. Last year, we transferred 350.
Correct.
And that was a topic that you guys wanted to bring back up this evening.
That is the current topic. So $100,000 increase.
I thought it was 300,000 to 450.
300 to 450.
Yes, you're correct.
It is.
I apologize. Yes, you're correct.
All right. Any discussion on this topic?
I have a question from last night. If I got this right, Mr. Anderson is here tonight. So I believe you said something about rating our streets at 67. And if we were to continue with this funding for the streets, it would, and for, I think, several more years, 3 more years maybe, I'm not sure I remember that correctly, but we would still only maintain the status quo. It wouldn't improve our streets. So I had a question last night or the night before. What exactly is 67?
Yeah.
I mean, in my class, that would have been a D.
In the most simplest terms, there's a rating scale of 0 to 100. 67, we're a third of the way down into that scale. And you can, simplest thing is that it is a level at which streets are showing significant signs of distress. And the way that a street deteriorates, if you think of a curve of condition, to get to this point in the mid to low 60s, deterioration really accelerates. And when they get into that worst condition, they require more expensive rehabilitation. So 67, and I think I put a sentence in the BIP, something about is a level at which most streets are showing significant signs of wear, stress, and are fairly soon going to need major rehabilitation. I think that's probably the simplest. Maybe it would have been helpful if I would have included some pictures, but there's a lot of use of the street. That's the way I tried to portray it. Is that helpful? And yes, you had understood my other comment correctly, that the amount of maintenance that is proposed for the current fiscal year, and that's or included in the current fiscal year budget, and that's proposed for the next fiscal year, is a level that would just stay.
Other questions of Mr. Anderson?
Comment, I'd just like to leave the street department in the hands of Mr. Anderson. The monies that you've requested are fine with me, same way with the police department. And I can see one big item on our list that solves a whole bunch of those problems, and that is the loo. And I'm not in favor of that in this fiscal year.
So diverting the monies from the loo to other projects that we have needs for?
Sounds like we have a lot of actual needs as opposed to wants. And law enforcement is not a place I'm willing to cut. And they need to have a facility that they can be proud of to work in, as well as what they do on the streets.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
I'm hoping Angie has something more in her bag of tricks. I'd like to leave the loo on the table.
I just want to clarify. So are we good with leaving the 450 in the street fund?
I'm hearing that from everyone. So I see a nod. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. That resolved that item. Next item.
I believe if I understood everything correctly, we were going to retouch later during the conversation again on the chamber. I didn't have that finalized, so just want to make sure that I understand that correctly. Okay. So would you guys like to hear what I'm thinking that we could do?
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
of course.
Can you turn that? So. Dan, would you like to be in charge of doing this?
Find me $81,000 and make everybody happy. No hurt feelings.
Okay.
There we go.
So if you want to go ahead and erase that. Out a little. Don't break it.
Add to the budget.
Darn, I almost got away. Thanks.
So I'm going to tell you the page number as I go through it. And you guys can look if you would like to look. The first part that I'm going to touch on is the city manager budget. That's going to be
Cut that.
assets less than $5,000, $5,100
Page.
and that's on page 15. The city clerk and I were visiting today, and IT has already replaced those computers up at, if this new city manager decides to hire his additional position, there's computers already ready to go up there. So that would be a $5,100 savings. Okay, the next item is going to be in the legal department. That's going to be on page 20. Under contractual services, outside legal counsel or consultants for the airport litigation, that has been resolved. So we could take out $55,000.
Ooh.
Angie.
I said, are you keeping a running total of these up? Okay, good.
Oh, one question. If we get into some legal entanglement such that we need outside counsel,
You could do a budget resolution and move some of the contingency money as we've done this fiscal year.
We've got a plan.
the contingencies for.
What it is.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so if you would turn to page 26, that's the finance budget. It's my budget. If we need to remove the forecasting module for the financials of $35,000, gone without it this long, I can probably go without it longer. I'd like to have it just because I feel like it's important, but I'm willing to give that up if we need to do other things. It's under contractual services on page 26.
And what was the dollar amount?
35,000. If you would please turn to page 31. This is the Judicial Department. At the bottom of the page for assets less than 5,000, we have a court clerk laptop. We are now sharing our laptop with the city clerk in this office. And so we can remove the $2,200 for the court clerk laptop. The next page would be Human Under employee relations, we have $18,000 budgeted. It was brought up last night that that possibly might be removed. So that would give us an additional 18,000. That was the wellness, yes. The next page would be 46. Under the economic development, it was brought up to me today that possibly the business retention strategies could possibly hold off.
What is that? What is, I mean,
I think
We can't hear the definition of the budget retention.
It's page 46 under contractual services, starts with EOA. And that was a placeholder for city manager strategies to work on business retention.
In the amount of $20,000.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Is there any need maybe to retain some money in that fund at all?
absolutely we can do whatever you guys would like to do.
They're just potential.
I don't really know what it's used for, but I'm thinking right away, you didn't use any of it last year. And there may have been reasons for that, but if you're looking ahead to this year, would having 10 in that hole be at least something you can work with? I don't know where 20 came from either, so just a question.
Let me,
Just giving us maximum.
I'm just
solutions,
giving
and then
you
we
some
keep going with
solutions
the
and you guys
list
can decide and we can go back and decide if you want to cut the whole thing or only partial. The next page would be page 41, and this is the planning department.
One. Yep.
And under buildings and grounds, we have the Pioneer Cemetery annual maintenance. Been revised and we are able to actually do the contract for 2,000 instead of 4,000. So we could have a savings of 2,000 there. Pioneer Cemetery. And then to bring up again, as people have mentioned already, is to do the lieu, to take the lieu out of the budget of 200,000. The difference between the lieu and some of the other things is the lieu is a one-time versus a reoccurring. So the lieu could be, considered a capital project if needed. But adding all of this up, I have, I believe, 137,300, and that's in just those items. If we add the phone system for the police department, which they will not be needing, that's 14,500. Well,
Three,
oh, I didn't add the lieu, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right.
three,
But
337, 300
yes,
was your total.
yes. The MRAP paint. That's 4,000. And then possibly if the painting of the upstairs of 15,000. And then after, there's some other cuts that we could do out of the police department. if needed. So let me add this up with my handy dandy calculator.
Angie, a really quick question, please.
Yes.
Is that all the same color of money?
I'm sorry.
Is that all the same type of money?
This is all money out of the general fund.
Okay.
And it's in the departmental budgets.
Copy. Okay.
And
I'm
the
tracking.
total of that would be $370,800.
And if we left those 3 police items in, then it would be 337,300 that's there.
Could you
Well, the
make,
14,500 for the police department for the phones, it's not needed.
Not
They've
needed.
already
Okay.
completed that phone system, so they do not need it. I'm speaking with the Chief Worthy, the MRAP and the paint are in the budget, but if they were going to cut, those would be the first items that they would cut if they had to.
He's giving a nod, yes. Okay,
could
thank
we
you.
possibly make a note on there as to which of those items are absolutely not needed? For instance, the legal is absolutely not needed. So that's, yeah.
So I
because
think
some of
that
them are.
some people could look at those and say they might be needed. So we, as Dan Richardson mentioned earlier, just being on council, this year, we've already done a budget resolution to add additional services into the legal department for legal outside services. We've had to do it in the past years also. So it's something that's potentially usually always occurs. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. The finance, the 35,000, it's for the forecasting. But you know, if that's not something that council wants to do and the budget committee doesn't want to do, we can remove that. The judicial does not need to be done. The HR, the 18K for the wellness, that's something on the board that people need to kind of talk about. Would you guys like to do that? The economic development, again, that's an item that you guys need to talk about. Planning is not needed. The police, 14,500 is not needed.
Angie, question. So if this money, the 370,800 were put back into the general fund, it could still be, these asks could come up later at council and whatnot, and our budget at this point would still be balanced.
Correct.
Thank you. And we would have our new city manager on board to help with some of that.
Correct.
If requests reappear.
Sounds like a plan to me. That's
Just
logical steps
just thinking out
forward.
loud.
You lost me. You have to say that again. You sort of.
It seems like a logical plan, what Counselor Runyon just said.
I was multitasking and not doing it very well, but sorry.
Rod, can you repeat?
You repeat what you said, Ron?
370,800.
Yeah.
If we removed all of these things as Angie is listed here, that money would still be in the general fund. It would still be available as if these asks continue to come back, and the city council would deal with them at that point. Or if they're small enough, the city manager has he has the ability to do things within his realm without coming to city council. And sometimes that has been done in the past. So there's some options there, and the money is still in the general fund. We still have a balanced budget, and we're done.
Okay, so
Let's not
on
rush
a couple of notes on that.
Yeah.
When we budget as a departmental budget, we don't budget a lot. We don't leave a fluff or extra money in there anywhere
Right.
to grab. So it's not, if I went to Daniel or Matthew and said, hey, I need to get 20,000 for this, we would have to do a budget resolution and pull
Correct.
money from our contingency. We have budgeted this year for our contingency $950,000. So by budget resolution, we would bring it to council and do a budget resolution. But we don't have a fund where we can just go and grab, or a line item that we can just go grab that money to be able to use.
So it
We
wouldn't
would-
be in the general fund, it'd be in a contingency, these
It would be in the
funds.
contingency of the general
Yeah.
fund that we could bring it to resolution.
Exactly. Okay.
It's
I was
always-
really asking a question,
Yeah,
trying to state it out. So whatever it ends up at, that money is still there and could still be used as long as it's slotted properly. And in this case, it would be in contingency.
correct.
370,800 or approximately.
Correct. But if you were to take the 370,800, you still have some items on the table that you guys have been talking about this evening. And that is, do you want to add additional funding in for the dog control officer at 28,000? Do you want to add the animal control vehicle at 93,000?
Yeah.
Are we good with the Tourism Chamber of Commerce? I believe those are the items on the table right now still. So if you're good with the Chamber of Commerce, we would still have the 370,800. If you're good with you getting the animal control vehicle and the dog control vehicle, we would take those two expenses, which is 121,000, and reduce it from the 370,800. And that remaining balance would roll into the ending fund balance.
216,300. $370,800 minus the 121,000
Yes.
should be 216,349.
249,800.
Okay.
38,500 of that is definitely no longer needed in the budget. There are items that have, like the phones for the police and the judicial laptop and the
249.
2,000 out of plan.
Correct. So also the city manager at the 5,100, if you can go ahead and put a circle around that, Nick. That's not needed. So
I'd like to keep the finance software, the forecasting software. I think that's a good investment for us. I'd like to keep that in.
would you guys like to keep the legal of 55 in, or maybe part of the legal for the 55 in?
How about we redefine it from airport outside counsel to just outside counsel?
Are we trying to get just the dog control at this point? Like how much money are we looking for? I think that would be helpful before we start deciding what to.
Well, so at this point, if we put the dog control vehicle and the additional funding for the personnel services, we would have 249,800 in savings. And then that's where you can start saying, okay, let's add back in the finance. So now we have 214,800 in savings that we're still saving.
Well, my question is, what else are we wanting to add in? Like,
yeah, that was the question.
My question would be, we took out the loo.
That was
Why
a
do,
big-
why don't we like leave the loo in and work from there? Because we kind of decided to leave the loo in, before.
That would be up to you guys to decide.
I would like to.
I
would like
understood it
to-
was only a placeholder. It was not a done deal.
It was, and we had a lot of discussion about it. And my understanding was that we were gonna leave it, it's always possible we could reduce it if we got to this point and needed to. But I have a hard time with all of the discussion that we did, and we kind of all moved on from that, leaving it in.
I understood it as not as a placeholder for this budgeting process, that we could take it out if we needed it, but as a placeholder for further discussion down the road with city council to define what that lieu might actually look like. That this was a proposal that was brought forward, but it may not be the final product.
I left the meeting with the intention that it would stay in the budget. Then it would go to city council, and city council would decide what to do with that $200,000, as opposed to it just being, we could take it right out right now. I kind of felt like we had decided we were going to leave it in for the city council to work with. Does anybody agree with me on that?
Runyon.
Councilor Runyon, you can leave it if you want.
No, anyone else on the committee? Your input.
Well, I agree with Serena. That's what I thought. And without debating that, I'm trying to work backwards. Like if you need 121,000 for dog catcher at all, like a package, and we have 38,500 that definitely doesn't need to be, I didn't add the city managers in. So that would be, we're only down 40,000 to fund that. Once you take out the stuff that we definitely don't need, and you take out, and this including the city manager, because I didn't add that the first time. It helps to know how much we're looking for, rather than just saying, okay, these things are absolutely not needed, and we're going to yank them out of everybody's budget and throw them in general fund.
So if you'll pardon me with a little more math here. So if I add up, I think it's pretty clear that the group is prioritizing the dog catcher vehicle and staff. That's 121. Plus, it sounds like, and I agree with Councilor Richardson, that the 35,000 for finance is a good investment. And if, it was my understanding that, and I've attended a number of city council meetings where the lieu has been brought up for multiple years. And while I'm not necessarily advocating for that particular design or that particular location, I recognize that there is a need for public bathrooms in this community. So adding those up, I come up to 356,000. And up there, I see 370,800. So I'm going to suggest that we could keep the dog catcher vehicle and staff, the lieu, and the 35,000 for finance, and still have a little bit left, if I did the math correctly, which is.
Okay. So Angie can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking of in terms of what the item is. So if we need 121,000, we've got 39,600. Did I do that right? 39,500 that's not needed. Then you can take away 18,000 for human resources. And you can take away 15,000 for, where did I come up with that? Oh, I didn't make a note. I started to write econ development, but that wasn't it. So, oh, no, that's not right.
I guess my thinking is that
Planning.
rather than just saying, well, here's a lump of money, $370,800, and just saying, let's recapture that into the budget. Anything that's absolutely not needed definitely should be a part of that, but maybe those other things can stay in the budget.
So I can get down to only needing 7,000 that we come out of legal. And so that would still leave legal if we took away everything that's not needed, everything with a dot up there. The 18,000 from human resources, $15,000 for painting the upstairs of the police department. And she can check my math by adding that back in, but I like to think in terms of effects on the budget rather than, but I did the math.
What's the line items? What?
I was gonna take out 7,000, so.
So you'd like to leave 40.
Mhm. That was the one I said we could leave in.
Planning's out. The police department's out, the phones are out.
And then the paint is where I got the other 15.
The paint, are you talking the paint for the MRAP? or
No, just the painting the
for-
upstairs.
Okay, so you want to leave the paint for the MRAP?
I'm just, that's a suggestion, but if somebody feels like that's not the right item to take, that's fine. I'm just.
Do you want to take the paint out for the MRAP, or do you want to leave the paint in for the MRAP?
That's where we are.
So that leaves actually only 3,000 to be short. Add it back into legal if you want.
All right, any other resolution, anyone else adding to this discussion? This goes for anyone in the Zoom, if you have anything to add to this discussion. Well, I want to go back just for a second. I looked up the definition for what is necessary and what is wanted. And it says a need is something necessary to live and function. A want is something that can improve your quality of life. Of course, it depends on your perspective of what is a want and what is a need, but we have to come down and decide for ourselves where these items and how much we're going to fund. And that's the process that we're currently involved with. And it's a tough process, isn't it? But, I appreciate the willingness to look at everything and come back and negotiate. What we're doing is trimming. And it's impressive going through this process. So that's where we're at right now. We're getting close to the resolution at the end, but there's still there are remaining items.
I don't know if this comment is helpful, but I'm going to say it just to get it off my chest. So the $200,000 for the loo, I'm not 100% convinced $200,000 for that item is absolutely the right item.
I'm in agreement with you.
I'm convinced that the conversation needs to happen. And the way that we make that actionable is by putting a number there.
I'm going to step out and say that with 200,000, perhaps we have other issues that are surrounding the need for public restroom, and that can we utilize what we have currently and we're offering, especially with the addition of the bathroom that's public right now downtown.
Yeah.
And in addition to the other things that we have, does that fill that need?
No.
And in your opinion, yes. I'm looking at a 200,000 possibly could be used to purchase a new location for the warming place, the Hope Shelter, because that comes with a lot of concerns with the people around the area. And is it possible that we could incorporate a public
Not in the
restroom?
budget. It's not
Well,
even
I-
proposed.
This is for years looking down the road, but we're also looking at that $200,000. Could it be utilized better in another application than the loo?
Okay, but let's just talk about it. A bathroom is a need. There's also legal precedent that says we have to provide that. You also have to provide places for people to sleep, or you can't, you're gonna have people continuing to toilet on the ground, which we do not want. I don't think there's anybody here that wants that. And the loo answers all of the problems that we're having of people sleeping in the bathroom, of it being hard to clean. It's all in the proposal. We've gone over it a bunch of times. I know not everybody has grasped it as much as I have because I'm really passionate about it. I lived 5.5 months down at that site when I put the pallet shelters in, and I used those porta potties with them for 5.5 months. And I'm telling you, this loo is good for the city. It's good for people who are homeless. It's good for people like me who walk downtown and need a bathroom because they can't just drive home when they want one. It's good for the people who own stores downtown and don't want the public coming into their bathrooms. I mean, Clint's even said before that they had people steal stuff. They were nice. They let somebody go in the back and use their bathroom, and the person grabbed stuff and walked out the back door. It's not for our businesses to suffer. It's not for the residents down by St. Vincent de Paul and the other places that people are congregating. This is something we're supposed to do as a city. This is the best option. We spent 5 years. The reason it's $200,000 now is because we waited. It was half this price before. What do you think it's going to be in the future? It's not going to be better, but we have something that we can just hose down. You're never going to build anything else like that. This is research. This is used all over the US, that is tested. It's not like we made it up and we're going to build it ourselves. It's thoroughly tested, used. I mean, I don't know what else I can say. Like it is the best. We researched it.
There are other companies out of Germany, and the other cities of Seattle put in German, and also San Diego put in this particular loo and removed them from their city because of the issues and problems associated. Now, I'm just putting that out because that's on the internet and that's been discussed. And when asked about should we put one of these particular items or these loos, Portland loo is identified as the loo that you're looking at, the restroom, right? And so I'm still not convinced. Yes, it is it's recommended, but what I'm saying, are there other options? And
So leave the 200,000 in there. And then if there's another option that's cheaper, the city council can decide that.
Can we call it a downtown restroom?
yes,
So not having been in on the history of the discussion over the years, just coming into this budget process right now, I see it as something which is on the budget that we're discussing. We're not discussing some future potential use for this money, or I mean, we could use it in something else in this budget, but not like throw it back into the general fund as or identify other uses for this money. This money is in the budget for a downtown toilet. And as we discussed, since I'm new to this process, I'm not bringing anything to this other than as we discussed, this money is going back to city account. This is a directive from the budget committee to discuss this and determine how to utilize this money, whether it's for the Portland loo or for a German one or for the new fanciest thing that they make. That goes where it gets located, what the item is all to be determined by the city council at the directive of the budget committee, putting it into the budget. So my feeling is that we honor that we had that conversation earlier, and we send this in the budget to the city council to move forward on this as a project, as a need within the community, identified need within the community. There are always going to be, how are we going to deal with it? What are we going to do? I don't know, but putting it in there is saying, I mean, somebody put it in the budget for us to discuss a lot of money for this project.
Previous city manager.
That that communicates to me as a citizen on this committee that there's a reason why it's in there. And so I don't disagree that there are other needs within our community, but those are not on what's on the table. They're not what's in the budget. And we did have this discussion before. So I would like us to support the decision that we made earlier, which is to move this project to City Council to move forward on it. We aren't making the decision tonight what exactly is going to happen, what object or where it's going to be. We're only directing the city to do this project in some way. And I would like us to do that.
So you're saying at least change the name to Downtown Restroom?
If it makes you more comfortable to take the identifier out, as we were talking about before with the tree project, if it helps you to get to that place where it's not this object in that location, rather a directive to the city council to use this money to create a additional downtown toilet.
Do we
Yes,
not have a
change whatever word you want.
Do we not have a restroom in the Lewis and Clark facility? Do we not have public restrooms there? Do we not have restrooms? Yes.
The Lewis and Clark is only open from April 1st to the end of October, and it's not a 24/7, and it's open from 7.
We can't hear the current comment.
Yeah, come on up.
I appreciate this opportunity. Using your,
Yes,
yes. What,
I did.
yes, what you did,
I did an inventory.
3 pages and your comments. So, said that there are 7 available public restrooms open 24/7. There's only one, and that is at the Vets Building, new one, and that is open 24/7, 365 days a year. The other 24/7 is at Kiwanis Park. It's a porta potty. Parks and Recreation takes care of that. And that's the building, the bathroom down there that is a brick building has been closed since the end of the year. And because of vandalism, we're waiting for the parts. Thompson Park has a porta potty up there, 24/7. So there are only 3 24/7 bathrooms in the town of the Dalles, the whole area. So the Vets Building bathroom is the only one downtown that is open 24/7. You also had alluded, Tim, that there are 10 available public restrooms during park hours. And I followed up with this research that I've been doing for 7 years. I re-looked it up. I spoke to Scott at Parks and Recreation this morning. And I also have spoken to the city. And this, the other bathrooms are only open spring, summer, and fall, April 1st to October 31st, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the evening. That's the Marina. Rosas Park has 2. City Park has 1. Riverfront Park has 1. Lewis and Clark has 1. Those are only open from 7 in the morning till 7 or 8 at night. They're only open spring, summer, and fall.
That's because of winter and freezing.
I recognize that.
Freezing of the pipes.
I recognize that. But it's just the information that you shared is misinformation.
And Judy, can you just address that then? The loo and the lack of, it doesn't freeze?
Yes, the loo does not freeze. Sorry you don't like the word loo.
I don't think we should identify the product in the, I agree with that.
Okay, so a 24.
It's the only kind of toilet that doesn't freeze.
Another discussion for city council.
Okay. So I just wanted to explain that that it's misnomer that there are public bathrooms for us to use downtown or even in the whole town, 24/7, 12 months out of the year. So the loo is a 20, or the bathroom is a 24-hour, 7 days, 24 hours, 365 days out of the year. And it's hooked up to water and sewer.
What prompted me to do this was lack of my own knowledge. And so I went out and physically went to, as you saw in the pictures, and I identified, I didn't include the city hall because there's 2 bathrooms that I just went to, which is accessible by tourists. And I'm not opposed to this. It's just the amount of money is, I think, what, $139,000 for this? And can that money be spent in a better manner that addresses this problem? That's my question. That's why I did that.
Well, I visited all the bathrooms again this morning, every one of these.
And?
I gave you the information. I made the phone call to Scott. Gathered accurate information.
Right? Then I stand, that was the intent. There's no intent to drive anything. I'm not making any conclusions. I just wanted to identify what we actually had in our city. And I don't draw the same conclusions that you are, but I think that we provide adequately for all, especially with the warming place. If we can get that warming place, now I'm hearing that the Hope Warming Center next year is not going to function. They're not going to open for evening. That leaves that population. If those are rumors and speculation, but that leaves a huge void for us next year for the winter. Yep. Right.
So, Judy, I'm just going to ask you this question. And the reason that we're putting $200,000 in there for this particular toilet is because that's the maximum price that it costs to have the downtown toilet that does everything we want. You didn't just look at the loo, right? You didn't just go to Portland. Like, how many things, how did you do your research?
I have a big binder. Would like to. I have a big binder. Lots of different categories in it. Binder? Right.
Can I maybe make a suggestion to try and move this forward? So Angie's done some fancy math for me here.
Thank you.
And so on the board behind us, we've got through all these cuts, we've got $370,800. Putting in the loo, downtown bathroom, whatever you want to call it, dog control vehicle, added personnel costs for that position. Getting rid of the legal, which on here's got 48 up there. I think started out at 55. The 35,000 for finance. No,
the 48,000 we would be adding back in.
oh, adding back in. Sorry.
48,000.
So adding back in the 48,000 and the 35 for the finance software or system, we end up with a negative 53,200. So we could take out the 48 for legal. That gets us down to about 5,000 negative. And then general fund is looking at $25,730 in unbudgeted funds for insurance. So then if we get rid of the 20,000 economic development and see if the public works sign shop can work with the police department on getting better prices or fixing their exterior signs that they've got budgeted for $8 grand.
Right.
There's some potential there for savings. So that gets us closer to zero.
So,
Work with police to do what?
The sign shop at Public Works too, because their exterior signs are in bad shape and they're budgeting $8 grand to replace them. With all those things, we're close to zero.
This evening, I did put this piece of paper on everybody's, in front of them on the table. Last night, Daniel mentioned that we received our proposed quote for CIS. In our budget for the general fund, we proposed that was going to be 153,456. The quote has come in at 179,186. So we are going to have a deficit of 25,730 that we need to get into the general fund budget, or we will be looking at in the middle of the year doing a budget resolution and pulling from the contingency fund. So I feel like since we know that these premiums are here, we're in the budget process, we should go ahead and get these added. And it's in front of you on the blue sheet if you guys saw.
Where do we stand? Where do we go? What do we
So to
resolve?
So to get to that point, you keep the 200,000, police department gets their animal control and vehicle, take out the 20,000 for economic development, take out the money for the legal, and then have the police department work with Public Works on their exterior signs, so that $8,000 that they've got budgeted go in. That gets us 2-0, I believe. And then we need to come up with another. More math coming.
I'm trying to do it though. Minus 68. Minus 10,903. We'd have a deficit of 2,930 that we could just pull from our reserve for future expenditure. Yeah. And we'd still be maintaining our 10% contingency. We'd have a placeholder for the loo. I do want to remind everyone, though, that we do not have insurance for the loo. If we maintain that, if we were to designate it out to something else, to another business, then, but we don't have anything in the budget for those other pieces because it hasn't been put together by city council yet. So
we have the placeholder. And so if that can be part of council's discussion, if they even decide that they want to go forward with the loo or something else, then we can add the insurance in because obviously that's mandatory.
Yep.
And I'm not opposed to moving down that road. As long as we have a review and we can come back. There was just one more question that I have of, in light of surviving over 2 years of pandemic shutdowns and with the knowledge that now we differ on the amount of restrooms, that 17 accessible public restrooms is adding a 200,000 K load, a need or a want at this time. And my take is it's a want, and yours is it's a need. And that's why we differ on that. So I just wanted to finish that up. With the resolution that we've had before us, we've answered, what about Chamber of Commerce? Is that their request?
Why are we trying to cut that money? And TRT dollars are limited in what they can be used for. And I haven't heard anybody say they want to add something to the budget.
Well, TRT dollars are limited, but not absolutely limited, right? They're limited by percentage and we spend that. We put a bunch of it into the general fund as well.
But we have to be able to account out of the general fund that it's being used for tourism. We use
Correct.
it like for police department.
However, does that TRT fluctuate? Is it steady? Can it go up? Can it go down? Does this reflect in that ask?
it could. I mean, this is an estimate of what I think that we'll be receiving. This last year, finance put together the host compliance program so we are able to monitor all Airbnb and VRBO. And so hopefully we'll be able to get all the transient room tax dollars that are out there for us to get. So I'm hoping that's going to increase as we go along, but again, it's an estimate.
It's an estimate and a budget is only a plan, and it can be modified and updated as necessary. And we've done that in the past, correct? So that's, and what we just did tonight, we trimmed the budget in order to make it fit. And I do appreciate all of the contributions by different departments to that effort so that we can find some common ground and find some resolution so we can move ahead. And then we can approve our budget, move it forward. That's the process. Now, where are we in that process? Do we have an understanding of where we stand as far as the budget? I'm looking at nods. Anyone else has anything to add to this discussion? Because it's important that we have each individual with a voice to have input. And Debbie, you're up.
I wasn't writing things down as you were going through that last list, and I don't know if you could circle the things that are going to stay in the budget that are up here, maybe just.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would appreciate a final list of what we're saying would stay in and what sort of modifications we're actually looking at.
I didn't take this one, but I did the previous.
I was going to say, take
Yeah.
a picture. Email.
We will.
So city manager is going to leave the budget. Legal is going to leave the budget. Judicial.
It's really hard to hear, sorry.
Take the portable.
Take Darcy's.
Just take it with you, Angie.
Sorry, guys. I thank you for accommodating.
Yep, it'll be Ox.
So everything that's on the whiteboard will be taken out. We started out with $370,800. And that was if we were going to take all of these items out. The loo will be put back in place, and the finance will be put back in place. The dog control vehicle and their quarter FTE extra personnel pay will be put back in. Well, be put back in. It was never in the budget. I apologize. $8,000 for the signs for the police department that was in the police department budget will be removed also. And then the remaining balance will be taken out of the reserve for future expenditures, which was about $2,300. And then we also have an additional expense that's coming out of there, and that is the CIS insurance. The general funds portion is $25,730. Since we are talking about the CIS insurance, I do need to speak that the street fund is going to need to be reduced, and that'll be balanced by taking out of the contingency. Water fund WIX will be reduced, and that will have $11,051. That will be taken out of their contingency. Water distribution fund will need to be reduced $5,396, and that'll be taken out of their contingency. Wastewater fund will need to be reduced $8,261, which will be taken out of the contingency. And when I say reduced, I mean their expense needs to go up for the insurance, and their contingency will be reduced. And I think that's it.
For those on council, the presentation on the CIS insurance renewal will be on the 23rd council meeting.
All right. We have spent considerable amount of time on committee discussion. Do we have anything remaining to be said? Yes. Izetta? Okay.
I'm just trying to check my notes. And did you decide what to do, you think, in the fireworks?
that was a swap. I interpreted that as being, you think was 25,000, fireworks, $10,000.
But that is for sure what you guys-
Everyone has that same understanding? All right. That's resolved. Any other unresolved issues in this budget process? All right. Wow, we're getting close now. Are we confident as each member of this panel that we've performed a detailed examination of the expenditures and a review of the process and the spending of our city? Are we confident that we've done that? I am. I think we've done a good job of that. We've gone step by step. So that was our duty. That's our obligation. Now we come down. We've looked at trimming and we've come to conclusions. Now what we need to do is we need to move forward and we need to adopt or approve this budget to be sent forward to City Council for the next step.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget as presented and amended and move forward to city council.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
And that,
All right, we have a second. We have any other discussion or forever hold your peace?
I appreciate all the discussion around the table and the points of view.
I appreciate you, the chairman and the staff work.
Here's the deal. When we leave here, we're still friends. We're still part of our community. We're still, now, there's no hard feelings, I hope. And anything that was said was for the interest of our city. So we just want to part friends. All right. With that said, we have a motion on the floor, a second. All in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And
Aye.
this includes, who was the aye?
That's Ben Ring.
Ben Ring.
That's still muted.
Oh, you voted for. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
4, yeah.
Then it has been decided that we are going to move this budget process forward to City Council for consideration. Is there anything else that we need to discuss?
Sure.
Oh, yes, Mr. Hunter.
I'd like to thank everybody on the budget committee for hanging with us through this process and for staff tightening the belt a bit to make it happen.
And I've been through this process many times. And even though it's been contentious at times, but it's been a healthy, introspective way of looking at our finances and being responsible to our taxpayers and our constituents. So good job, everyone. Thank you very much. This budget meeting is adjourned.